Hey, what's up guys? In today's video, I'm gonna be making a storage rack for some free weights like these. Now, we have a ton of free weights just sitting on the ground in our little home gym, and I wanna give them a better home as well as add some space that I can add some more in the future. Now, my main goal for this project is just to keep it super simple. I basically only wanna use materials that I already have on hand. I think I should be able to get this thing built pretty quickly. All right, I can't wait to get started. Let's go. Sometimes my inspirations for builds come less from a desire to build something really cool and more from a place of just needing to correct an ongoing issue. I'd say a lot of my builds get started that way. After tripping over these free weights on the floor in our basement one too many times, I decided that I had to do something about that. So that's where I sort of got the idea for this build in particular. But here's the thing. I wanted to build something to fix this issue, but I didn't want to invest too much time or money into the thing. I want to say this entire build probably took me about 4 to 5 hours from start to finish, and I used very little materials. Now, since I build a lot of things, I had all of this material on hand, but if you don't, then I'll leave a list of materials that I used in the description box in case you feel inspired to build one of your own. Now, when I say I was winging this build, I mean it. Most of the time, I will draw up some sort of plan or cut list so I know what size to cut my pieces to, but for this build, I thought, why not just go for it and see what happens? Sure, there was a chance that I would finish it and look it over and think to myself,
ugh, you look horrible.
But for something that's going to live in our basement, I was willing to take that chance. But spoiler alert, I think it actually turned out pretty cool. To construct the frame of my weight rack, I cut down 2 2x4s to start. I started by cutting my pieces that I knew were going to be the base and sit on the floor, and then I played around with some angles to try and decide which angle worked best for the design I was going for. I settled on a 25-degree angle for my side pieces. Again, if you want to know exact dimensions, I can leave that in the description box. With some of my pieces cut, I had to get to work on figuring out how to assemble everything together. To join my pieces together for the sides of the frame, I simply found the center of each of my pieces and I set my angled piece back about 6 inches from the front of my base piece. And then I pre-drilled a hole and sunk a screw in, just holding it as tight and centered as I could. I also added a screw to the back of my angled piece to help keep my piece from moving around. I figured the combination of the wood glue and the screws should make this strong enough, but time will tell, I suppose. Once I had one side done, I simply repeated the same process for the other side. With both side pieces done, it was time to connect the two. To do this, I cut some additional pieces from my 2x4s to about 24 inches. Now, you could honestly make this whatever dimension you want. I personally chose that dimension because I was trying to get 3 pieces cut out of a 6-foot board that I plan on using for the shelves. But if you aren't trying to use existing material, you can make this rack as wide as you need. I felt like this rack was wide enough for me for now to grow into, but if I need to expand in the future, I can do so. Now, I connected these pieces for the base of the weight rack using some wood glue and pocket hole screws. If I was trying to make a more finished looking piece, then I might have tried to conceal those pocket holes, but I wasn't too concerned about that for this piece, so I just installed them with the pocket holes facing up to make things just a little bit easier on me. Next, it was time to attach my support pieces that my shelves are going to sit on. I cut my 2x4 pieces to width, and then I measured where I wanted to place them and how I needed to angle these pieces to give the shelves a bit of a slope. To attach these support pieces, I also used a combination of wood glue and pocket hole screws. And it was during this step that the old rusty dog himself showed up to enforce a mandatory pet break, which, if I'm being honest, is my favorite type of break, so I was taking full advantage. And after a few kisses and a quick throw of the tennis ball, I was back to work. My plan was to add 3 different shelves, so I simply tiered the support pieces for the shelves, making sure to keep them even on both sides. I didn't really have a specific height for each one. What I ended up doing was taking my weights and using them as a guide to make sure I would have enough clearance to easily get them out from under the shelf above. And that's sort of what I used to gauge the height for each. With the frame of my weight rack assembled, all that was left was to add some shelves. For my shelves, I ended up using a 16-inch wide by 6-foot long board that I had, and my plan was to cut it down into 3 separate pieces to use as shelves. I used my circular saw to get it close to the dimension that I needed, and then I ran each piece through my table saw to get it to its final dimension. Then it was time to get these shelves attached to the frame. To attach them, I applied some wood glue to the support pieces, and then I lined up the shelves where I wanted them and countersunk some screws through my shelves into the support brackets. I also ended up sinking some screws into the shelves through my side rails as an extra level of support. Once the shelves themselves were good and attached, I then took a small 1-inch wide strip of wood and attached it to the shelves. This will just serve as a way to keep the weights from sliding off the shelf since the shelves are tilted slightly. Once I got one shelf attached, I repeated the same process for my other 2 shelves. I also decided to add some storage for a few small workout equipment pieces we have, like resistance band and jump rope. I didn't get too fancy with this. All I did was add a couple of screws to hang them on. Remember, I'm trying to use only materials I have on site, and this got the job done. There was one last thing that I had to do to this piece to really finish it off, and that was to give a nice little brand using my new electric wood branding iron that I recently got from Gerhardt Industry. There's just something so cool about being able to brand a finished piece that makes each project all the more special. Now, like I said before, I recently picked up this electric branding iron as an upgrade to my traditional torch heated one, and I love how easy it is to use. I can plug it in and let it start heating up while I'm working on other things, and it's ready to go when I'm ready for it. It saves me so much time, and I'm really impressed with the quality of the brand itself. If you've been debating about whether to get a wood brand for yourself, I would highly recommend picking up one from Gerhardt Industry. I've purchased 2 brands through them now, and they're a great company to deal with and deliver a really nice product. If you want to check out their products, I'll leave a link in the description box below, and you can grab one for yourself and start branding your own pieces. guys, we are done with this weight rack now, and I'm super happy with how it turned out. There's a few other things that I can do in the future to make this a little bit better. You know, if I decide I want to paint or stain or finish this in the future, that's something that I can do. I'm good with it the way it is for right now, since this is just going in our basement. But if I want to do that in the future, I definitely can. Also, I might add some wheel casters to the base here, so that way if I want to move it around, I can do so easily. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out of just a few materials. I mean, basically I had like 2 2x4s and 1 of these boards here that I cut into 3 separate pieces. So all in all, it's pretty impressive that I was able to do this without purchasing any material. Just used everything that I had on hand. If you are curious as to what I actually used, I'll leave all of the supplies and everything in the description box below so you can check that out. And that's a wrap on this one-day build, guys. A DIY weight rack built in just a few hours using only materials I had on hand. Don't you just love projects that don't cost a thing? I hope you guys enjoyed the video and it gave you some ideas of how you can build something like this of your own. If nothing else, I hope it inspired you to get creative and make something awesome. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys again soon for my next project. Bye.